The Russia-Ukraine war has ushered in new changes, and Ukraine has received a new script. However, this new script may be difficult for Ukrainians to accept, as Ukraine may soon face the fate of dividing its territory into three parts. On April 17th, Ukraine's first Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy, Svirdenko, announced on social media that Ukraine has successfully signed a memorandum of understanding with the United States regarding a mineral agreement. This news immediately sparked a lot of speculation in the international community. Ukraine is a country with abundant mineral resources, and its mineral reserves occupy an important position in the world, covering various types from coal, iron, or to rare metals. These resources have extremely high value for modern industry and energy industry. Once the United States officially acquires Ukraine's mineral and energy development rights, it is likely to take the form of a company or a police presence to safeguard Ukraine's security. This model is not without precedent. The United States has used similar methods in other regions to maximize its strategic interests while acquiring local resources. However, this move has also raised many concerns, as it means that Ukraine's sovereignty and resources will be further influenced by external forces. On April 11th, U.S. President's special envoy for Ukraine, Kellogg, proposed an idea in an interview with The Times that Ukraine could follow the zoning model of Berlin after World War II and roughly divide it into three controlled areas. Specifically, the four eastern regions of Ukraine are under the actual control of Russia, while the western regions are supervised by British and French forces. The United States and Russia coordinate the establishment of an 18-mile buffer zone, while delaying territorial ownership negotiations until after a ceasefire. As soon as this plan was proposed, it caused a huge uproar internationally. After Kellogg's plan was announced, he urgently clarified that the media had taken it out of context and that his intention was to establish a responsibility zone for maintaining peace after a ceasefire, rather than splitting Ukraine. But this clarification only deepens the confusion of the outside world and makes people doubt its true intention. On the surface, this plan seems to attempt to achieve a ceasefire and peace in Ukraine through regional control, but in reality, there are complex considerations of interests and geopolitical layout hidden behind it. This plan first sparked strong reactions within Europe. The Financial Times revealed that the United States has promised to quickly withdraw troops from NATO countries such as the Baltic Sea once a consensus is reached with Russia, in an attempt to win support from European countries. However, many details in this plan conceal hidden dangers. Specifically, the arrangement of British and French troops stationed in western Ukraine can make Russia feel uneasy, as their military presence as important members of NATO undoubtedly poses a potential threat to Russia's security. At the same time, it further tied Europe to the chariot of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, making it difficult for Europe to be independent in the future development of the situation, and European countries must assume more responsibilities and risks in the future military. Of course, this arrangement seems to effectively balance Russia's influence in European geopolitics. Ukraine is located in Eastern Europe, connecting the Eurasian continent, and its geographical location makes it an important part of the European security landscape. If the plan announced by Kellogg can be implemented, then through the division and management of Ukrainian territory, the United States' control over regional affairs will be more powerful. The plan announced by Kellogg is also closely related to the economic interests of the United States itself. Ukraine is rich in natural resources, including mineral resources, vast agricultural land, and an important geo-economic location. By cutting off control over Ukraine, the United States will gain more economic benefits, such as control over energy resources and leadership in related infrastructure construction. The development and utilization of these resources and infrastructure will bring huge economic returns to the United States, while also further enhancing its competitiveness on the international economic stage. What is the attitude of other countries towards this plan? Russia has shown a cautious response to this plan. Kremlin spokesman Peskov chose to remain silent at a regular press conference, perhaps reflecting on how to deal with this complex situation. The Russian General Staff expressed its attitude through practical actions. Within 48 hours of announcing the plan, the Russian aerospace forces' strike intensity on military facilities in Kharkiv Oblast increased by 40%. This talk and fight strategy reflects Russia's deep doubts about Western proposals. For Russia, if this plan is implemented, it means that the bottom-line goals set by the Putin government before will fall through. Military experts also pointed out that Ukraine still controls strategic points in some of the Russian border areas, and even if there is a ceasefire, these areas will become a huge obstacle for Russia to regain lost territory. At the same time, Kellogg's announced plan to introduce British and French troops to supervise Western Ukraine may instead put Russia in an awkward situation of failed demilitarization, failing to eliminate the threat of Ukrainian troops and introducing European forces into Ukraine, which is difficult for Russia to accept. And the Ukrainian side strongly opposes this plan. The conversation records leaked from the Ukrainian presidential office show that Zelensky compared this plan to the Munich Agreement of the new era. This metaphor has strong historical symbolic significance. The Munich Agreement led to the cession of the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia to Nazi Germany before World War II, and Ukraine clearly did not want to repeat the historical mistake of becoming a sacrificial lamb in the great power game. In an interview, Pavliuk, the director of the Operations Department of the Ukrainian General Staff, pointed to the battlefield situation map covered with red and blue arrows and angrily said, "Our soldiers are still building defenses with flesh and blood, while politicians have already divided the country on the map." For Ukraine, this plan is nothing but a disaster, and its national integrity and independence will be seriously threatened. Although Ukraine has long relied on military aid from the United States and Europe, accepting this plan would be tantamount to political suicide. Therefore, observers believe that Kyiv may cooperate superficially, but in reality, they will find ways to delay time and wait for a turning point on the battlefield. After all, if negotiations are really necessary, it may be more in Ukraine's interest to have face-to-face talks with Moscow rather than through third-party mediation. After the announcement of this plan, other European countries also found themselves in an awkward situation. The chairman of the Defense Committee of the French National Assembly, Lair, questioned, "Are we going to repeat the tragedy of the Berlin Wall in 1961? The chairman of the German Social Democratic Party's parliamentary group, MU Senec, warned that this could lead to a new Iron Curtain on the European continent. European countries are already in a dilemma in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The plan announced by Special Envoy Kellogg undoubtedly makes Europe more dilemma. The plan to divide Ukrainian territory is highly controversial in the international community. The principle of sovereignty is one of the fundamental principles of international relations, and this proposal clearly undermines this principle. It not only fails to contribute to the regional peace process, but may also become a new source of regional instability, further spreading geopolitical tensions and impacting the security landscape of Europe and even the world. Many international organizations and countries, including the United Nations, have called for the settlement of the Russia-Ukraine conflict through peaceful negotiations and respect for the sovereignty and interests of all countries. Therefore, the plan to divide and govern Ukrainian territory still faces great difficulties in order to be implemented smoothly, and this plan may not be a good idea. At present, the situation of the Russia-Ukraine conflict is still serious, and the interest demands of all parties in this game are complicated. However, the cost of war is heavy, with countless lives lost, homes destroyed, and economies devastated in this conflict. The international community needs to work together to promote the Russia-Ukraine conflict towards a peaceful solution in the form of peace, dialogue, and cooperation, so that people in Ukraine can return to a stable life and contribute to world peace and stability. This is not only a responsibility to the Ukrainian people, but also a commitment to the future development of all humanity. I hope that in the near future, the dawn of peace will truly descend on this war-torn land. Welcome to subscribe and share my channel, where I will share valuable information and insightful perspectives with you every day. See you next time.